January 1945. German High Command is baffled. Their Luftwaffe pilots are being obliterated by an American magic weapon. But when their top scientists finally capture the enemy's technology, they are horrified. It wasn't genius. It wasn't precision. It was junk. And it was the secret that was winning the war. December 24th, 1944, 11:30 a.m. 2,000 feet above the snow-choked Ardennes, near Liège, Belgium. The air is bitter, so cold it feels like glass shards in the lungs. Oberleutnant Kurt Vogel keeps his gloved hand tight on the stick of his Focke-Wulf. 190, the engines roar, a familiar comfort against the biting wind. Below him, Operation Bodenplatte is in full swing. This is it, the Großangriff, the great attack that will split the Allies, drive them back to the sea, and save the Reich. His Staffel is flying low, fast, and mean. Their target, the critical bridges over the Meuse River, swarming with American supply trucks. Like shooting fish in a barrel, his Geschwader commander had promised. Vogel scans the horizon. He's flown against the Americans for 2 years. He respects their Mustang fighters, fears their B-17 flying fortresses, but he scoffs at their ground troops, soft, pampered. And their anti-aircraft fire, their flak, is a joke. It's inaccurate, sparse, and easily avoided. The real danger has always been the RAF's precise, radar-guided batteries over the Channel. The American batteries? He barely gives them a thought. He banks his full 190, lining up for a strafing run on a convoy of trucks idling near a pontoon bridge. Alpha 2, this is Alpha 1. He barks into his throat mic. Form up for the attack. I'm going in. He kicks the rudder and dives. The pine trees blur into a green and white smear. 1,000 feet. 800 feet. His thumb moves to the cannon trigger. Then the sky erupts. It's not the familiar sight of flak-isolated black puffs chasing his altitude. This is something new. Something wrong. A barrage of 90mm shells screams upwards. But they aren't aiming for him. They're exploding below him. In front of him, around him, puff, 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 crack. It's not a barrage, it's a wall. A solid, impenetrable ceiling of high explosive and steel fragments, appearing exactly at his altitude. Pull up, flak, he screams. His wingman, Fähnrich Hans Reiter, is flying 100 meters to his right. He's a good pilot. He jinks hard, trying to fly under the bursts. A shell, one of a dozen, doesn't hit Hans. It doesn't need to. It explodes 50 feet below the Focke-Wulf's belly. The concussion slaps the plane, and a spray of shrapnel, moving at supersonic speed, rips through the port wing like a buzzsaw. The wing simply disintegrates. Hans's 190 cartwheels, a ball of fuel and flame, and plunges into the dark forest. Vogel yanks the stick back, his engine screaming in protest. He claws for altitude, his heart hammering against his ribs. What in God's name was that? He looks back. Another Staffel of Messerschmitts, coming in from the east, meets the same fate. The American guns fire. The shells don't seek the planes. They just arrive, and the air itself becomes a kill zone. Shell after shell, detonating without a direct hit, detonating in proximity. Vogel doesn't know the name for it. He doesn't know he's one of the first Luftwaffe pilots to encounter the American VT Fuze, a weapon just authorized for land use by General Eisenhower 3 days prior. All he knows is that the soft Americans, with their terrible flak, have just made low-level flight impossible. He escapes, his fuel tanks low, his hands shaking so badly he can barely grip the stick. When he lands at his snow-covered airfield, his report is met with stunned disbelief. Pilots don't mind a challenge. They don't mind danger. But they are terrified of magic. Within 24 hours, similar reports are flooding Luftflotte Reich. The Großangriff is faltering, and the skies are now, suddenly, lethal. The German High Command, already stretched thin, is baffled. Their own radar-guided flak is cumbersome, requiring massive Würzburg radar arrays. This is different. It's mobile. It's everywhere. A Priority 1 order is cut from Berlin, routed through the Reichsforschungsrat, the Reich Research Council. Dr. Ingenieur Albert Speer himself demands an answer. Teams of scientists are to be dispatched immediately. Their objective: recover the technology. Find out how the Americans built this impossible wall. They are to collect everything: shell fragments, downed aircraft, and especially their radios. January 12th, 1945. A damp, freezing laboratory at the Waffenamt Army Ordnance Testing Ground, Kummersdorf, south of Berlin. The air smells of wet concrete, ozone, and stale cigarette smoke. Dr. Ingenieur Matthias Eckhardt, a senior physicist for the Reichspost, stares at the workbench. His colleague, a Telefunken radio engineer named Karl Zissler, holds a jeweler's loupe to his eye. On the table in front of them, laid out on a sheet of white cloth, are the fragments. They are jagged pieces of metal, plastic, and wire, recovered from a snowdrift in the Ardennes. They are the guts of the American 90mm magic shell. "Look at this," Zissler mutters, his voice a low rasp. He points the loupe at a tiny shattered glass tube. It's a vacuum tube, a pentode, but it's absurd. Eckhardt leans in. He's a man who believes in precision. In German, precision. His work on radar and acoustic torpedoes is a testament to the belief that with enough time, enough thought, and enough genius, any problem can be solved perfectly. Absurd, how? Eckhardt asks. "It's crude," Zissler says, frustrated. "But it's robust. Look at the filaments. They're thick, they're braced." He taps another fragment. "And this, it's a battery, but it's activated by inertia. When the shell is fired, the shock breaks an ampule of electrolyte. It's devilishly simple." Eckhardt runs a hand through his thinning hair. "We had this," he says, his voice quiet, dangerous. "We had this in 41. The Kranich project. You and we tested it at Peenemünde. And it worked," Zissler counters, straightening up. "It worked beautifully. It was sensitive. It was elegant. It could detect the resonance of a specific aircraft engine." "And?" Eckhardt presses, already knowing the answer. Zissler sighs, defeated. "And it required 3 Würzburg radar beams to guide it. Each vacuum tube had to be hand-blown by an artisan in Thuringia. Each fuse took 40 man-hours to assemble and tune with an oscilloscope." He gestures to the fragments on the table. This is not elegant. This is a hammer. A blunt, brutal, stupid hammer. A hammer that has just shattered Bodenplatte," Eckhardt snaps. "A hammer they are producing by the million." He walks over to the window, looking out at the flurry of snow dusting the test range. "We designed a Stradivarius," he says, "when they needed a banjo. We gave them a weapon that only a physicist could love, and the Führer cancelled it because it was too complex and too expensive. We told him it couldn't be simplified. A pair of soldiers, their greatcoats smelling of wet wool, roll a heavy wooden crate into the lab. 'More from the front, Herr Doctor?' One of them grunts, his breath pluming in the cold, from a captured Sherman. Zissler takes a crowbar. He doesn't care about a tank, he cares about the radio inside it. His team's primary task, aside from the fuse, is to understand American communications. The Wehrmacht's tactical radios, the Feldfu, are masterpieces of engineering. Compact, quartz crystal controlled, with superb frequency stability. The American radios they've heard are noisy, prone to drift, and seem to cover the entire spectrum with chaotic chatter. Zissler pries open the lid. Inside, nestled in straw, is a dark green metal box, an American SCR 508 tank radio. He and Eckhardt lift it onto a workbench. It's heavy, crude. The paint is thick and uneven. The latches are simple, stamped steel. "My God," Zissler says, almost laughing. "It looks like a farm tractor built it." "Open it," Eckhardt commands. Zissler unlatches the case and pulls the chassis out. He stops, he stares. Eckhardt leans in, his eyes narrowing. They are not looking at a complex, hand-wired marvel. They are looking at junk. The soldering is sloppy, thick, vulgar blobs of silver. The wiring isn't a neat, organized loom, color-coded and tied with wax string like in a Telefunken set. It's a rat's nest. Wires of different colors are just there, running from point to point. The capacitors aren't high-grade porcelain, they're waxed paper. The resistors are simple carbon, not precision wire wound. This is trash, Zisler says, his voice filled with genuine professional offense. It's an insult. Look at this toggle switch. It must have a tolerance of 1 millimeter. Ours are machined to 1/100th. Does it work? Eckhart asks, his voice flat. I assume so. But how? The frequency must drift. It must be full of noise. It's primitive. Zisler pulls out a component, a small, square metal can, a filter. He connects a meter to it. He frowns. He adjusts his glasses. He checks the meter again. What is it? This component. This filter, Zisler says, turning it over in his hand. It's standardized. Eckhart blinks. What? In our radios, Zisler explains, speaking faster, every component is tuned for that specific radio. The inductors, the capacitors, they are all matched. A meister spends a day on a single radio, tuning it. It's an art. This is just a part. They haven't tuned it. They've just stamped it. They've built it to such loose tolerances that it doesn't need tuning. It just works. He drops the filter. It clatters on the bench. He looks up at Eckhart, his face pale. The shock is profound. It's not the shock of discovering superior technology. It's the shock of discovering a superior philosophy. Wilhelm, Zisler says, they aren't building these. They are excreting them. They are pouring them out of a machine. And if this is their radio, what does that say about their fuse? Eckhart looks back at the fragments on the white cloth. The stupid hammer. He now understands. The Americans haven't solved the problem of mass-producing a complex proximity fuse. They have bypassed it. They have created a new kind of science. A science not of perfection, but of good enough. A science of quantity. And it is going to bury them. January 17th, 1945. The Kummersdorf Laboratory. The silence in the room is heavy, broken only by the snip of wire cutters and the metallic scrape of a chassis being dragged across the workbench. In the past 5 days, the lab has transformed. It is no longer a place of analysis. It is a morgue. Captured American equipment is everywhere. A stack of green metal boxes in the cornerfield telephones, a pile of wiring harnesses from a wrecked Jeep. And on the main bench, laid out like surgical patients, are 3 different radios. The SCR-508 from the Sherman, a newer SCR-300 walkie-talkie recovered from a dead paratrooper, and a command radio from a B-17. Dr. Ingenieur Eckhart and Karl Zisler are no longer just looking. They are seeing. Matthias, come here, Zisler says. His voice is flat, all the earlier arrogance gone, replaced by a cold, clinical dread. He is holding 2 vacuum tubes. One is from the tank radio, an SCR-508 built by the Philco Corporation. The other is from the SCR-300 walkie-talkie, built by Motorola. Look at them, Zisler says. Eckhart takes the tubes. They are identical, not similar, identical. The same glass envelope, the same pin configuration. The same printed designation, Jan 7H7. Jan, Eckhart murmurs. What is that? Joint Army-Navy, Zisler replies, picking up a 3rd tube from the B-17 radio. It, too, is a 7H7. It's a standard. A universal part. A company in Ohio makes a tube. A different company in Illinois makes a radio. A 3rd company in Michigan builds a tank. And they all fit. Zisler lets out a short, bitter laugh. Do you know what happens when a Feldfoo radio tube blows at the front near Minsk? The Gefreiter has to box the entire 30-kilogram unit, put it on a truck, and send it 500 kilometers back to a depot in Warsaw. There, a Meistera-certified Telefunken technician must disassemble it, find the faulty part, replace it with a hand-tuned Telefunken-specific tube, and spend 4 hours recalibrating the entire set with an oscilloscope. He gestures to the American radio. And the Amos? They're G, I. He doesn't even know what a volt is. He just opens a box, pulls out this 7H7, shoves it into the socket, and the radio works. The junk philosophy. It wasn't just in one radio, it was in everything. The Americans hadn't just built a better fuse, they had built a better system. An ecosystem of pure, brutal, interchangeable function. Eckhart turns and walks to his small, cluttered desk. He sits down, pulls out a fresh sheet of paper, and unscrews the cap of his pen. He begins to write. He is drafting his official report for the Reichsforschungsrat. He writes for an hour. He describes the VT Fusea, crude but effective, Doppler radar, small enough to fit in a shell. He describes their own abandoned Kranich projector, sensitive, brilliant, but ultimately impossible acoustic system. Then, he writes his conclusion. It is the most dangerous paragraph of his life. Our pursuit of technical perfection has become a strategic liability. The enemy is not winning with superior quality, but with superior quantity, enabled by a philosophy of adequate design. We are building Meisterwerke masterpieces. They are building Werkzeuge tools. Their components are standardized, their assembly is crude, and their philosophy is purely pragmatic. We have built a radio that is a marvel of precision. They have built 1 million radios that work. The Proximity Fuze is the ultimate expression of this. A weapon we abandoned as too complex to mass produce is now being used by the enemy by the 10 million. Our science is a monument. Theirs is a hammer, and 1 million hammers will shatter any monument. January 19th, 1945. Zossen, Berlin, headquarters of the Oberkommando der Wehrmacht. The room is opulent, panelled in dark oak, but the air is frigid. The coal rations have been cut. General Major Franz Grosser, an ordnance procurement officer with a neck like a bull and the small, suspicious eyes of a party zealot, glares at the report on his desk. Eckhart stands at rigid attention, Zissler a pace behind him, trembling slightly. This, Gross states, his voice a low growl, is the most insulting, defeatist heresy I have ever read. He picks up the report. Heresy, Herr Doctor. It is the truth, Herr General Major, Eckhart says, his own voice tight. The findings are indisputable. Their junk is beating us. Junk? Grosse explodes, slamming his fist on the desk. You dare to call German genius, the work of our Meister, a liability? You compare the brilliant engineering of Siemens, of Telefunken, to this American trash? I am telling you, Eckhart says, his voice rising, that their trash is interchangeable, that their trash is repairable by idiots, in a muddy field. I am telling you that while we spent 3 years trying to make our fuse perfect, they made one that works and put it on a production line. We had this technology, Eckhart pleads, stepping forward. We told the Führer in 1941 it was impossible to make a vacuum tube that could survive being shot from a cannon. And it is impossible, Grosser roars. No, Eckhart shouts, his composure breaking. It is not. The Americans did it. They didn't make a perfect tube. They made a strong one. They didn't hand blow it from Thuringian glass. They encased a crude filament in wax and plastic and let 1 million of them fail in testing, just to get the one design that would survive. They brute forced the problem. Grosser stands up, his face purple, his hand hovering over the telephone. You are speaking of a philosophy, Doctor, not engineering. You sound like a Bolshevik, obsessed with quantity. And what is their quantity doing right now, Herr General? Eckhart counters, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. It is sweeping the Luftwaffe from the sky. It is turning our Ardennes offensive into a massacre. Their stupid hammer is beating us. And we are sitting here, admiring our Stradivarius as the Reich burns down. The general stares at him, speechless. The air crackles with the unspoken word, treason. General Major Grosser does not shout again. The silence that fills the opulent, freezing office is far more terrifying. He walks slowly around his desk until he is standing directly in front of Eckhart. Gross is a large man, and he uses his physical presence as a weapon, forcing the scientist to tilt his head back slightly. You are a brilliant man, Doctor, Grosser says, his voice a low, almost gentle murmur. The Reich has invested a great deal in your brilliance, but you are not a soldier, you are not a political philosopher. You are an engineer. He places a heavy hand on Eckhart's shoulder, his thumb pressing into the scientist's collarbone. Your job is to solve technical problems, not to question National Socialist doctrine. He squeezes. This philosophy you speak of, this heresy. He smiles, a thin, wolfish grin. I will not report it. Not yet. Eckhart's relief is instantly smothered by dread, because, Gross continues, you are going to fix it. You are going to take this hammer, and you are going to give it to me. Herr General, Eckhart whispers, confused. You say their fuse is simple. You say their methods are crude. Gut. Then you will copy them. Gross returns to his desk and scrawls a note on a pad. You and Herr Zissler will be transferred. A new facility. Under guard. For your protection. You will take all this American junk with you. You have 10 days. You will deliver to me a German-made proximity fuse, based on their design, and it will be ready for mass production. He looks up, his eyes dead. If you succeed, your report will be, we're evaluated. If you fail, you will have proven that your theories are also failures, and the SS has very specific uses for failed scientists with defeatist attitudes. He hands the note to a guard. Get them out of my sight. January 24th, 1945. A requisitioned Mannesmann steel foundry near Brandenburg. The vast, unheated factory floor is a tomb of cold iron. Eckhart and Zissler, now under the watchful eyes of two humorless SS guards, have a new workbench. The junk is all there. The radios, the fuse fragments, and now more. A crate of K-rations, a soldier's wool overcoat, a pair of standard-issue G.I. boots. Why this? Zissler asks, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. He's holding one of the boots, turning it over. The leather is thick, but the stitching is functional, not precise. The rubber sole is simply vulcanized on. Why did they send us a boot? Because he thinks we are insane, Eckhart mutters, his fingers probing the shattered components of the SCR-300 walkie-talkie. He thinks this is a test. He thinks we will look at this junk and finally admit that German quality is supreme. But it's not, Zissler says, dropping the boot. He walks over to the table and picks up a small, oil-stained booklet. It was found in the glove box of a captured Willys Jeep. The cover reads, TM 9 to 803. Technical Manual. Jeep. Matthias, Zissler says, his voice hollow. Have you looked at this? A maintenance manual. So what? We have manuals. No. We have schematics. We have blueprints. Zissler insists, his hands shaking as he opens the booklet. This is not for an engineer. He holds it up. The page shows a simple, line-drawn cartoon of a G.I. using a wrench. The text is not in dense, technical Gothic script. It's simple, childish. Wrong way, a speech bubble says from a cartoon man turning a bolt counterclockwise. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Eckhart stares at the page. He doesn't understand. Look at this, Zissler says, flipping a few more pages. He points to a diagram of the engine. Every part is labelled spark plug, distributor, oil cap. But the diagram itself is simplified. It's not a true schematic. It's an idea of an engine. This manual, Zissler says, is not written for a meister. It's not written for a mechanic. It's written for a farmer, for a boy who has fixed a tractor. The full, horrifying realization crashes down on Eckhart. It's not just the fuse. It's not just the radio. It's the boot. It's the Jeep. It's the K-ration, with its standardized, pre-packaged tin and wax paper components. The Americans haven't just built a new kind of weapon. They have built a new kind of soldier to use it. A good enough soldier. Our system, Eckhart says, the words catching in his throat, is based on the Meister, the master craftsman, the expert. We have a handful of them. We train them for years. We build weapons that only they can build, and only they can fix. He looks at the cartoon. They have built a system based on the farmer, the common man. They have millions of them. They have designed their entire military, their entire industrial base, so that any farmer, any GI, can fix anything, anywhere, with a simple wrench and a cartoon book. Zisler holds up the Jan 7H7 vacuum tube. The Meister builds the violin, one at a time. Perfect. Eckhart looks at the manual. And the farmer, he builds 10 million banjos. And he gives them a book that teaches them 3 simple chords, and he drowns the violin in noise. Eckhart sits down heavily on a wooden crate. Grosser has given him 10 days to replicate the fuse. He now sees the truth. He could replicate the fuse. He's a German engineer. He could probably even make it better, but he cannot, in 10 days, or 10 years, replicate the farmer. He cannot replicate the Willys Jeep manual. He cannot replicate Philco, Motorola, Ohio, and Illinois. He is not just failing a test. He is a high priest of a dying religion, staring at the idols of the new, brutal, and frighteningly simple God. February 1st, 1945. The Brandenburg factory floor. Day 8 of the impossible task. The vast hall is a graveyard of German genius. Dr. Ingenieur Eckhart and Karl Zisler are failing, and they are failing miserably. For the first 3 days, they had tried to do as they were trained. They looked at the shattered American fuse fragments and decided, with ingrained professional pride, that they would not copy the junk. They would improve it. They would make a German proximity fuse. Zisler drew a schematic for a new vacuum tube, not a brute force tube like the American Jan 7H7, but an elegant one, a tube that was both robust and sensitive. He sent the design by military courier to a Telefunken factory in Berlin. The answer came back yesterday, scrawled on the bottom of the schematic. Estimated tooling time, 4 to 6 weeks. Estimated failure rate for cannon firing, 98%, impossible. Eckhart, in a fit of cold fury, had taken one of the captured American tubes. He'd connected it to a power source on their bench. It glowed. Then, he'd taken a steel wrench and dropped it on the tube from a height of 1 meter. The glass bounced on the workbench. The filament inside flexed. And it stayed lit. They encapsulated the filament supports in plastic. Zisler had whispered, staring at it. They don't care about signal purity. They only care about the circuit staying closed. Now, on day 8, they have given up on innovation. They are simply trying to copy. Eckhart is trying to replicate the American battery. The simple, inertia-activated glass ampule. He has a crate of German-made glass vials. He fills one with electrolyte. He seals it. He strikes it with a hammer to test its breaking point. The vial shatters, spraying acid across the bench, missing his face by inches. He tries again. This time, the glass doesn't break. He hits it harder. The hammer bounces off. "The glass is wrong!" Eckhart roars, his voice echoing in the empty factory. "Ours is too pure. It's too strong. It's brittle. Theirs must be impure, flawed, cheaper. It's designed to break at a specific, predictable shock level." He is a man driven mad by the realization that his entire education is a liability. To build the stupid American fuse, he must first learn how to build stupidly, and he can't. The 2 SS guards, standing by the factory doors, watch him with bored, cold eyes. They don't understand the science. They only understand the deadline. On day 9, a black Horch staff car crunches to a halt on the gravel outside. A Hauptmann adjutant, not Grosser himself, strides into the factory, his boots clicking on the concrete. "Status. Heil Hitler," the adjutant says, his tone clipped. General Grosser expects a demonstration. Eckhart is pale, his eyes red-rimmed from sleeplessness. He looks at the parts on his bench. The failed batteries, the impossible schematics. "We have failed," Eckhart says. "Failure is not an acceptable report," the Hauptmann replies, his hand moving to the flap of his pistol holster. "We have failed to build the fuse," Eckhart clarifies, his voice dangerously calm. But we have prepared a different demonstration to show why we have failed. He gestures to a long table. On one end sits a pristine Wehrmacht issue Feldfunksprecher, the Feldfu, B model. A masterpiece of engineering. Its case is made of lightweight bakelite and aluminum. On the other end sits the crude, green, heavy American SCR 508, ripped from the Sherman tank. Herr Hauptmann. Zisler begins, his voice trembling. Observe. The German radio. He switches it on. A pure, clean tone comes from the speaker. He tunes the dial. The frequency is exact. It is a marvel, Zisler says. I am not here for a radio show, Doctor. The adjutant snarls. Now, Eckhart says. He picks up a small, steel hammer. He taps, with moderate force, a single, precision wound coil on the Feldfu's chassis. The perfect tone vanishes, replaced by a hiss. The radio is dead. What have you done? The adjutant demands. I have misaligned the L2 coil by 0.5 millimeter. Eckhart says, this radio is now useless. It must be sent back to a depot in Berlin. Only a Meister with an oscilloscope can recalibrate it. The Hauptmann stares, his expression unreadable. And now, Eckhart says, moving to the other end of the table. The American. Junk. He switches on the SCR 508. It crackles to life. A muddy, noisy signal audible. It's awful, Zisler comments, as if on cue. The signal drifts. It's full of static. But it works. Eckhart picks up the same steel hammer. He doesn't tap the American radio. He smashes his fist down on the chassis, hard enough to make the metal groan. The radio lets out a horrible squawk, and then resettles. The noisy signal is still there. The adjutant's eyes widen. Eckhart takes the hammer again. He slams it onto a row of vacuum tubes. One shatters. The radio hisses and dies. Broken, the Hauptmann says, a note of triumph in his voice. One moment, Eckhart says. He reaches into the chassis of the other American radio, the B-17's command set. He pulls out a tube. He shoves it into the empty socket on the tank radio. He throws the power switch. The radio crackles, hisses, and the muddy, noisy voice returns. The Hauptmann is silent. He stares at the junk radio, now working perfectly enough, despite being brutalized and repaired with a part from a different machine. That, Herr Hauptmann, Eckhart says, dropping the hammer, is the American philosophy, and that is why we will never build their fuse. You cannot order me to replicate a system that has taken them decades to perfect. You cannot order me to build a farmer who knows how to use a cartoon manual. You can only shoot me. The Hauptmann doesn't move for a long time. His name is Ernst Riehl, and he is, for the first time in his military career, completely and utterly at a loss. He was trained at Lichterfelde. He has read Clausewitz. He understands Kesselschlacht, the Battle of Encirclement. He understands logistics. He understands ideology, the righteous power of the Volk and the Führer. He does not understand this. He does not understand a hammer that fixes a radio. He does not understand a philosophy of good enough. It is un-German. It is filth. And yet, it works. You will say nothing of this, Riehl finally says, his voice barely a whisper. Of what, Herr Hauptmann? Eckhart asks, exhausted. Of this. Riehl gestures to the table, to the two radios. This demonstration. It is irrelevant. You were given a task. To build a fuse. You have failed. We have failed, yes. Eckhart agrees, nodding. He feels a strange, cold peace. He has told the truth. The rest is just paperwork. The General Major will be informed of your failure, Riehl says, pulling on his gloves. He is re-armoring himself in procedure. The SS will make a new disposition. He is condemning them to death, or worse, to a Strafbataillon. He turns to leave. Wait. Zisler blurts out, his voice cracking with terror. Please, Herr Hauptmann, we can still try. Give us more time. We can simplify our own designs. We can build a better battery. We can... Riehl stops, his back still to them. You think time is the problem? He asks, his voice thick with a sudden, new, and terrifying anger. You think design is the problem? You scientists, you never understand. He turns around, his face a mask of fury. But it is not directed at Eckhart. I was in Stalingrad, Rail hisses. I was. There. I saw us win. We had better tanks, better guns, better soldiers. And every single day, there were more of them. He points a shaking gloved finger at the American radio. They, the Bolsheviks, they are the same. They have junk. Their T-34 tank, it is a tractor. The armor is not even welded, it is poured. You can see the seams. And they made 50,000 of them. He is shouting now, his face red. And now, these pigs, these Americans, these farmers, they do the same. They bury us in boots, in canned meat, in radios that a hammer cannot break. He walks up to Eckhart, his eyes wide with a manic terror. We are the Meister, Doctor. We are the Stradivarius. And we are being drowned by noise, by hammers, by farmers. He grabs Eckhart by the lapels. You cannot tell anyone this. Do you understand? You cannot tell Grosser. You cannot tell the party. It is defeatism. It is the end. I already did, Eckhart whispers. It was in my report. Rail's blood runs cold. The report that Grosser read? Yes. Gross, read your theory on quantity and adequate design. He called it heresy, Eckhart says. Rail lets go of Eckhart and stumbles back, his face ashen. He now understands. This was not a test for Eckhart. This was a trap. Grosser, the ideologue, the party zealot, knew Eckhart had failed before he even began. He didn't want a fuse. He wanted proof that Eckhart's heresy was wrong. And this Hauptmann, he was sent here to be the witness, to sign the death warrant. But the demonstration, the hammer, it has backfired. Rail has seen the truth. He knows Eckhart is right. What have you done? Rail whispers, staring at Eckhart. You have proven the Reich wrong. The factory is silent. The two SS guards by the door are watching, impassive, their machine pistols held at the ready. Rail looks at Eckhart, he looks at Zisler, he looks at the two guards. He knows, with a sickening certainty, what Grosser expects him to do. He is here to cleanse this infection, this heresy. He is to report that the scientists failed, that they were insubordinate, and that he and the SS guards were forced to administer battlefield justice. We can build a German hammer, Zisler stammers, his mind racing. A better hammer. Volksradio, Volksfuse, simple, for the Volkssturm, we can. Shut up, Karl, Eckhart says, placing a hand on his friend's shoulder. He looks at Rael. What are your orders, Herr Hauptmann? Rael looks at the radios. The pristine, dead German radio. The battered, living American one. He is a man of ideology, but he was also at Stalingrad. He has seen what quantity does. He makes a choice. My orders, Rael says, his voice regaining its sharp military edge, are to report on failure. And I see no failure. The SS guards stir, one of them taking a step forward. Hauptmann? Rael ignores him. I see progress. I see innovation. You, doctors, have discovered a flaw in the enemy's design. This Jan tube, it is weak to a specific frequency. We can jam it. It's a lie. A desperate, blatant, absurd lie. Eckhart stares at him. You will draft a new report, Rael commands, his eyes boring into Eckhart's. You will omit this philosophy. You will omit the demonstration. You will write a technical paper on American signal vulnerabilities. It will justify your continued work. It will give you more time. Rael is not saving Eckhart, he is saving himself. He cannot be the man who reports the truth. He cannot be the man who admits that the farmers have already won. Do you understand me, Doctor? Eckhart nods, the cold, bitter irony washing over him. The general wants a lie, The Hauptmann wants a lie. The Reich is built on lies. His one brutal moment of truth is now being buried under the paperwork of a dying regime. Yes, Herr Hauptmann, Eckhart says. We have discovered a vulnerability. Real nods, his composure restored. He turns to the SS guards. Your services are not required. Go back to your barracks. I will take personal responsibility for these assets. The guards look at each other, confused, but a Hauptmann outranks their orders. They shrug, shoulder their rifles, and leave. Rail walks back to his car, his footsteps echoing in the vast, cold hall. He doesn't look back. Zisler slumps against the workbench, his legs giving out. He is gasping for air. He saved us. Matthias. No, Eckhart says, picking up the American Jan 7H7 tube. He holds it up to the dim factory light. He didn't save us. He buried us. He has ordered us to lie, to be German. He looks at the tube, the stupid tube, the junk tube. He's afraid of the hammer, Karl, Eckhart whispers. They all are. But outside, the Reich itself is being shattered by hammers. From the east, the Bolshevik T-34 seconds. From the west, the American Shermans. And above, in the skies, a symphony of proximity fuses, clearing the air, making way for the farmers. The Meister are in their tombs, and they have just been ordered to write their own epitaphs. April 16th, 1945. The Brandenburg factory. The lie has lasted for 2 months. 2 months of phantom research. Eckhart and Zisler sit in their frigid lab, drafting useless schematics for jamming transmitters they know will never be built, for a war that is already lost. The front line is no longer a line. It is a feeling. It is the percussive thump-thump-thump of Soviet artillery from the east, a sound that vibrates in their teeth, and the high-pitched whine of American Mustang fighters strafing the roads just a kilometer away. General Major Grossi is gone, vanished in the defense of Berlin. Hauptmann Reil is, who knows, probably dead, swallowed by the Stalingrad that has finally come home. There are no more guards. The SS contingent fled a week ago, commandeering a truck to join the final battle, which was, in reality, a panicked flight to the west to surrender to the Americans. They will be here soon, Zisler mutters, huddled over a small smoky fire he's made in a steel barrel. He is burning their fake reports. The Russen, perhaps, Eckhart says. He is not burning reports. He is methodically, precisely, cleaning. He has disassembled the captured American SCR-508 radio. Its junk components are laid out on a clean white cloth, just as the fuse fragments had been months ago. He is cleaning each stupid Jan 7H7 tube, each crude, waxed paper capacitor, with a small rag. What are you doing, Matthias? Zisler asks, his voice trembling. We should run. We should hide. Where? Eckhart replies, his voice flat. He holds up a tube. To the Meister? To the farmers? It doesn't matter. I am an engineer. This is my work. He is the last priest in a dead religion, dutifully tending the idols of the new, victorious one. The sound that comes is not the thump of artillery. It is a clank and a squeal. The sound of steel treads on concrete, inside the factory. Zisler whimpers and runs to a corner, hiding behind a pile of empty crates. Eckhart stands up. He lays his cleaning rag down. He turns. A Sherman tank, painted dark green, its white star stark in the gloom, has nosed its way through the main factory doors. It stops. The cannon's heavy muzzle, stamped with the name Bad Habit, swivels and points directly at him. The turret hatch clangs open. A young man, barely 20, with a face full of freckles and a helmet perched on the back of his head, pokes out. He is chewing something. Gum. He grins at Eckhart. Hey, Mac, you the guy who runs this joint. You, sprechen Sie. Surrender. Another G. I, older, with sergeant's stripes, jumps off the back of the tank, his M1 Garand held loosely in his hands. He walks over, unconcerned, and nudges the dead Feldfu radio with his boot. "Damn, Sarge," the tanker calls out. "Look at this. Some kind of fancy radio. Looks expensive." "Leave it," the sergeant, a man who looks like he was a farmer, barks. He looks at Eckhart. "You, scientist? Doctor?" Before Eckhart can answer, a Willys Jeep, the exact same model from the manual, squeals to a stop behind the tank. A new man steps out. He is not a farmer. He wears an officer's uniform, but his face is that of an academic. He wears thin, wire-rimmed glasses. He walks directly into the lab, his eyes scanning everything, his movements quick and precise. "Major Joseph Aronson," he says, in flawless, unaccented German. "T-Force, Technical Intelligence. You are Dr. Ingenieur Matthias Eckhart. You are a physicist with the Reichspost. It is not a question. And you," the major says, pointing to the corner, "are Karl Zissler from Telefunken. Please, come out. The war is over for you. And for us, the real work is just beginning." Zissler shuffles out, his hands raised. Major Aronson ignores him. His eyes are on the workbench. He sees the disassembled SCR 508. He sees the Feldfu next to it. He sees the hammer. He sees Eckhart's meticulous, hand-written notebooks. He picks up the fake report on signal vulnerabilities that Eckhart had left on top. He skims the first page, his lip curling in a slight sneer. "Jamming frequencies? Doctor, this is drivel. This is beneath you." He tosses the report into the burning barrel. Then, his eyes find the small, leather-bound journal Eckhart used for his real notes. Tucked under a bench, Aronson picks it up. He flips through the pages. He sees the sketches of the fuse, the analysis of the farmer's manual, the drawings of the Jan tubes. Then, he finds the carbon copy page, the original, heretical report he had written for Grosser. "Our pursuit of technical perfection is a strategic liability. A million hammers will shatter any monument." The major is silent. He reads the full paragraph. He reads it again. He slowly looks up at Eckhart. There is no triumph in his eyes, no arrogance. There is recognition, a profound, almost sad, professional respect. "My God, Doctor," Aronson whispers, in English, as if to himself. You saw it. You were the only one. You actually understood." He switches back to German. "You understood why you were losing. It wasn't the fuse. It was the philosophy. The G.I. From the tank, the farmer wanders over. "Hey, Major, we gonna pack this stuff up?" "What is it?" "It's everything, Corporal," Aronson says, closing the journal. He looks at Eckhart with a new, intense focus. "Sergeant," Aronson barks, "get Doctor Eckhart and Mr. Zissler in the Jeep. They are valuable assets. Priority 1. Do not let them out of your sight." The sergeant nods. "You got it, sir. Come on, Herr Professors, let's go." As Eckhart is led out of his factory, past the Sherman tank, the corporal the farmer holds out a small, crumpled packet. "You look beat, Mac," the boy says. "Want some gum?" Eckhart stares at the offering. The junk, the philosophy. He slowly, methodically, takes a stick. The major, carrying Eckhart's journal, climbs into the front seat. "Take them to the camp at Zehlendorf," Aronson orders, "and find me a translator. I want to talk to this man. I want to talk to him. About hammers." Eckhart, the Meister of German science, a man of pure, perfect, and useless precision, is driven away in a Willys Jeep. His greatest, and most heretical, analysis the only perfect thing he ever built is now in the hands of the farmers. And they are the only ones in the world who understand it.